Good morning. How everybody doing on this Wednesday morning? I'm making this video. It's about 10:03 Milwaukee time. Hope everybody had a good night's rest. A good day today, Wednesday morning. Don't let nobody change your attitude. Don't let nobody make you mad. Most importantly, don't let nobody make you relapse. Don't never let nobody change who you are or what the fuck you want to do, right? One thing I can say, one thing I noticed, like, in this whole journey of sobriety, I really feel like some people may not be happy for me, right? I'm trying to figure out a different way to put it without making it seem like they a hater or something, right? Because they ain't. It's just, some people, they used to seeing you down or seeing you in a certain light, right? And when you change that and you shed all of that negative stuff off, you gonna start seeing things more clear, right? And you gonna start to realize things that you haven't realized before because of the drug use or whatever the case may be, right? Whether you addicted to your job, whether you addicted to food, whether you addicted to drugs, you could be addicted to money, right? You could be neglecting your family because you in the streets getting money, or you at work all the time, right? And like I said, when you change, everybody ain't gonna be happy for you, right? They not. Just face it, right? You gotta make the decision, right? Is it worth? Is this relationship worth it, right? For your sanity, so you don't relapse, right? And sometimes I ask myself, you know, is it worth it? Hell yeah, it's worth it, right? I can't, man. When I think about when I used to be, high, getting high and shit, using drugs, pills, man, I couldn't think clear. I was angry all the time. I wasn't keeping myself up. And some people, whether to believe it or not, some people benefited off of that. Believe it or not, some people benefited. Whether they benefited from getting money from me, they benefited. I was always too high to pay attention. Whatever, right? They benefited. So when I did stop, and I noticed, certain things like that, everybody ain't gonna be happy for you, right? But it's this my journey, right? And I'm doing it at my pace, my speed, right? This is me, so this is my book, right? Just like if it was you, it'd be your book because you're telling your story, right? So, you know, I don't never, do nothing at somebody else's speed, man. I don't, you know. And I learned that from years ago. I didn't, man. If I can, to be honest, I can't even count how many times I said that I would stop, like, using drugs, right? And always relapse. This is the longest I've ever made it, right? So much shit, so much stuff has been different since I did stop, right? So much stuff has been different, right? And I thought I was gonna be happy, genuinely, right? I am happy, right? It's just like I said, some people that's close to me, I can just see that, they ain't all happy for me, right? It is what it is, right? I know I know what category I'm in right now in my mind, as far as, like, I might gotta do away with that person. I might gotta let them go, because like I said, I gotta get rid of anything that's gonna make me even think about relapsing. Somebody, if somebody ain't making you happy, or you ain't genuinely happy from dealing with somebody, I don't care if it's family, I don't care if it's friends, it could be a relationship, man. Leave it alone. Leave it alone, man. Man, wasted time. It's not about nothing. And everybody deserves to be happy. in your right mind, right? And I used to always tell people, like, certain people, used to tell me throughout the years, about my drug use. And I used to always think to myself, like, man, I'm gonna stop when I get ready. I'm not living, or I ain't on nobody else's time. I'm on my time, right? And I knew that time was gonna come where all of that shit was gonna get old to me. And it happened. It happened. This the most I've ever weighed in my life. I'm at 190. I'm eating every day. When I used to be off the pills, man, I'd be eating honestly every 3 days. Like, because I felt that if I ate, I would blow my high. And that's crazy to even think about. Like, man, when I think about that, I be feeling so stupid and embarrassed. Like, I just can't believe I was messing with it for so long, right? And you know what? Me going through certain stuff, that's what made me use, right? Even before I lost my son, I lost a close friend of mine. I had dropped him off. He was in the car with me. I dropped him off, and I parked my car at his house to get in the car with my little brother. And my friend ended up getting killed like 15 minutes later. So I felt so bad about that. Because I was like, man, if I would never, dropped him off, get in the car with such and such, he would have still been with me. But then I think about, well, if he was with me and he got that phone call, we both would have went over there, and I could have been the one that got killed, right? So that's something I had to go through. Then when I did lose my son, I lost my grandma a few days before that. And that memory of going to see my grandma at my mom's house, and I took my boys over there to to see my grandma. And then my son ended up passing 4 days later. And then his auntie ended up passing a month later, that we was close to, and we had just came from visiting her a few weeks before my son passed, right? So, it was, man, so much stuff, so much life, things that I was going through, and I didn't think I was strong enough to get through it. I really felt like if I didn't use those suicidal thoughts would come to fruition, or I trick myself off the streets, right? So I would use to numb the pain, but that's a temporary band-aid. It don't that don't change nothing, right? Because when your high come down, you still gotta face reality. Then what? You gonna use again? So it's gonna be a revolving cycle, right? And then when I look back, I'm 37 now. Now I done been through so much stuff. I lost my son in front of me. My son Kyriel. But I'm blessed. That I was able to send him off the right way. I'm blessed about from all the people that that pitched in or helped, or that offered kind words. Because my son was 13. When he passed, he had an asthma attack. And the crazy thing is, we had just came from living in Phoenix, Arizona, right? He always had asthma, but when we moved to Phoenix, his asthma didn't mess with him at all. He had no problems with his asthma, right? As soon as we moved back here to Milwaukee, his asthma started, he started having problems with his asthma, and a few days before he passed, we had just took him to urgent care for his asthma, and they do just like they do with everybody else. Say something and send you home, right? And that's what us black people, we gotta stop. We gotta learn how to stop doing. Stop taking these doctors' words, one doctor word as as word, Man, I could just go into plenty other times where doctors then gave out wrong diagnostics, or whatever, right? I do feel like my son could have been saved, right? When the ambulance got here, my son was still breathing, right? They asking my son questions. Why are you asking my son questions? His mom and his dad right here, right? My son used his last few breaths telling the paramedics, I can't breathe. You know, that's the by far the most worst thing I had to go through. Cause like I said, it plays in my head. You know, I watched him take his first breath in this world, and I watched him take his last breath. You know, and my mom we didn't go out of town when I was younger, right? I didn't go out of town till I was over 18. And, my kids, they done been to Phoenix, St. Louis, Chicago, Atlanta. I could go on, right? So I think about the life that, Kyriel lived, and, he, at that age of 13, he did way more than I did at 13. He had way more than I had, you know. Could I have been had a different, father? Yes. You know, everything happens for a reason. I'm not God. I don't know why, you know, he chose my son. The only thing that I can come up with is that, it was his time. You know, we all got a time. And that's one thing everybody gotta, we gotta realize. But, you never think that you're gonna bury your child. Your child supposed to bury you, right? But that's what made me stop, the drugs, right? Because I'm like, I know people used a few times and died, and OD'd, right? Like, man, I'm playing Russian roulette, and God still got me here. Oh yeah, I ain't no like, and then yeah, it did take me a while to realize that. It took me a while to realize my worth. That I'm worth way more than what I think. It took a while, right? And I don't know why. Like I said, I've been through a lot of stuff. Like I said, I got 5 years when I was 15. Man, anybody know me, I was in the streets, right? Never had a job, right? 37. Never had a job. Always got it out the street. Always got it out the mud. So this new version of me right now is something different, right? Because I'm filling out job applications. I'm being more active. I'm taking better care of myself. So all of these things, put together, I know my son's smiling. I know this all he wanted, right? I just hope, like I say, I just hope I see him one day. I know he in heaven. I I hope that's where I'm going, right? I don't know, you know. I don't really know, but shit. I hope I get there, right? We all hope that we get there, and before our kids. I used to always wonder, like, man, why God didn't give me a chance to, sacrifice myself, and I used to always think, right, if I think back to all the people that I then came across 37 years, even since 15, man, there's so many people that's dead or they ain't never getting out of jail. Plenty, right? And then they used to always tell us in jail, in the juvenile facility where I was at, like, look on, turn to your left, turn to your right. Out of the three, one of y'all gonna get killed. One of y'all going back to jail. Shit, one of y'all might not even overcome this, but and it was crazy. I see that now, like, man, for me to still be here and I'm telling my story and I'm a living testament, man. I didn't dodge death a lot of times. Like, I don't know when my time, right? I just make best with what I got now, right? And I live for today, right? I don't think about yesterday. I don't think about tomorrow. I think about today, now. You get what I'm saying? And right now, I'm thinking, like, I'm getting more into myself. I'm getting more into trying to raise awareness of asthma in these kids, Stop letting these doctors just tell us anything and send us home. And they give you a medicine and then give you another medicine to offset that medicine or a side effect, right? when I was growing up, like I said, you wasn't seeing people, kids dying from an asthma attack. People, they was having asthma attacks, but they wasn't dying, right? Now people are dying from asthma attacks, right? And then, like I said, you go into COVID, you know, I feel like, and this is my opinion, I feel like COVID was a population control, right? You know, social, they was paying out so much of Social Security, right? If you put something out there that affects sick people, who you gonna get rid of? All the people that's, running up these high hospital bills, the sick people, and I feel like they did a cleanse. I mean, that's just my opinion. Everybody got their own opinion, right? I just feel like that. It was population control, right? It's done and over. But, a lot of people lost their life from COVID and from asthma due, from that. It's just crazy, right? It just made me think about taking more care of my body and thinking about what I put into my body, right? I'm more mindful. I eat a lot more. I'm eating a lot more. A lot more. I'm telling you, I'm at 190. Now, this is the most I ever weighed in my life. I've never weighed this, right? The only way I get close to this is when I used to be going back and forth to jail in my early 20s, right? Because, the jail food is different. So that's the only time I could get up to this weight, right? Man, but, oh my gosh. But yeah, so, I had to drop in, holler at y'all a little bit, see how y'all doing today. Let y'all know how I'm doing, you know. Um, Hopefully I'll be able to, drop more of these videos within a day. Y'all comment and tell me what y'all want to talk about or what y'all want me to cover. I cover it all. I ain't gonna lie, right? I kind of look at myself like a YN, right? Even though I'm 37, right? Because I stay up on, you know, the the latest fashion. I stay up on the latest music. You know, I I know what's going on in the city. I know what's going on in other people's city, right? You know, people don't know how connected I am. I ain't gonna go into that, right? I ain't gonna go into that. But yeah, right. So I want to bring y'all different content. I want to bring y'all, my experiences with relationships. That I've messed up. I can admit that. You know, the person that I am today is nothing like the person that I was even 5 years ago, right? But yeah, y'all comment, tell me y'all different comments, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, you know, follow my YouTube, the same as the Facebook, Crash Out Angels. And the reason why I chose Crash Out Angels, right? Because we all did bad stuff, right? And, some people look at us crash out, right? We all did bad stuff. But at the end of the day, we all are angels. We all have a conscience, and we all try to, rewrite the wrong that we did, because we all are human, right? So Crash Out Angels was, it was a way of saying, like, yeah, I done crashed out a few times, but I'm still one of God's child, and, I'm making better decisions on my way out this joint, you know, but hopefully, I'm gonna start dropping, t-shirts, merch. Y'all see my logo, you know. So, y'all let me know what y'all want, right? Cause this is everybody's page, right? Cause y'all gonna grow with me, I'm gonna grow with y'all. So follow me on YouTube at Crash Out Angels. Follow me on Facebook at Crash Out Angels. And make sure y'all stay safe today. Stay out the way. Don't let nobody make you do nothing you don't want to do. Don't let nobody determine how your day is going to go. You determine how your day going to go. I'll catch y'all tomorrow or later on. I'll probably, you know what? I'll drop another video today. I'll do that for y'all. All right, man. Peace.